to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you.
Good morning and welcome to NUFC Matters. Not very often I say good morning on this programme, but here we are with Steve Howey before he goes out for his daily walk. Great to see you, Steve. How are you, mate?
I'm good. Up nice and early this morning. Went out early this morning with a dog. It was -7 as well. Wow. It was freezing. Came back. I've just finished training. So I've had a quick wash and then getting ready for this, and then obviously take the dog out again at 12 o'clock.
Brilliant. Well, great to have you here today of all days, because it's actually our 1 year anniversary. It's our birthday today for NUFC Matters, and it's just as we're saying off air, really, it's tragic that it's lasted this long, because it means, of course, the pandemic is still with us in that way, you know, and that's the reason we're setting it up, to try and keep people entertained.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic concept of having people still to be kind of in touch with what's going on, but obviously to interact as well. I think that's the biggest thing. I think one of the things that, you know, obviously I'm kind of going off on a bit of a tangent, but kind of it's mixed, is the fact that the thing with the videos, which I do as the rest of the players, it's all about just trying to connect with people and stay connected with people. And this is obviously a massive way of doing that, especially when the big thing is obviously Newcastle United. So you can everybody has the views of the manager, the players, results, performances, and it's a great tool.
Yeah, it's been great to see Alan Shearer taking part in podcasts this week as well. I mean, it's not something he would normally do, but
you done well getting him on, by the way.
Well, it was great, and Gallagher Shots have done it as well this week. You know, Alan's obviously got his raffle, which he's pushing, and we're delighted because obviously we supported it from day one, and he's now hit over £100,000. Still ongoing till the back end of this month. His 250th goal, his match shirt, his boots, and his captain's armband from his 250th goal. £10 a ticket, get yourself in, because that's a bit of gold dust. I said to him when I was speaking to him the other day, though, you got to dig a few more shirts out.
Well, I mean, it is a fantastic thing what he's doing. I mean, it is a great prize. To be quite honest, there might be a bit of mud on there, but there's no sweat. He didn't bloody move. Just in that 6 yard box because he was a goal lagger. But it is I mean, obviously the foundation that he's got set up is absolutely superb, and it's a fantastic prize. And I think anybody can get their hands on that, lucky enough to win it, is it's a fantastic thing to have.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, enough of me. Got plenty of questions coming in and quite a few on Twitter already. I know you'll have probably seen a few of these, but we'll start with Keith Roll. He says, can you ask Steve, how did winning the First Division title with Man City compare with winning it with Newcastle? And how did it feel getting the equaliser in the Manchester City derby? 2 great questions, Keith.
I think the Newcastle one was brilliant because obviously I was at the club when I felt as though it was really struggling. And then obviously to see the team, and because of the manager and Terry Mack and the players that were brought in, you could just see that the team starting to develop. The passion was always there with the fans, but it was amazing to see. I mean, obviously the game that we won, it was Grimsby away. Ironically, Grimsby being the team that beat us at home. I think the lad that scored, he scored an absolute belter at home and beat us 1-0. But the Man City, it was kind of similar, really, because again, the team and the club had been right down in the sort of in the lower divisions and really struggling. Obviously, I went there when Joe Royle was manager, but again, Kevin came in and again just starting what Kevin does and what he did best. Have players believing in themselves, and of course to win it at Man City again at Main Road. With the players that we had as well. I mean, you're looking at kind of Ali Benarbia, Berkovic, Paolo Wanchop, or Oshan Gota. You can go through the team, Kevin Horlock, Stuart Pearce. Fantastic team. But obviously, the one at Newcastle as well. Bears, Rob Lee, all them lads, Ned Kelly, Barry Benison, Paul Bracewell. Very, very fortunate to be a part of both of them clubs and both of them teams. So I couldn't really pick one. As far as the goal at Old Trafford was concerned, that was the same game that Roy Keane had a little, shall we say, late challenge on Alfie Inge Haaland. Plus, it was I think they could have relegated us that day as well. And to be fair, we got absolutely pummeled. We got battered, and we were lucky to still be in it at 1-0. And I think Paul Dickoff had took the corner, and I'd managed to get my knee on it, and it got in. We were lucky enough to scrape a 1-1. I mean, ultimately, we went down to Ipswich during the week, and we got beat, and we got relegated. But that was the start again of the revolution with Kevin again. So I think to score anyway is always good, but in a derby, it's always that little bit special.
Okay, good stuff. Martin McGuinness says, can you ask Steve which game in his view was the defining game when he realised the title challenge was slipping out of reach in '96?
It wasn't the Man United game because, I mean, we absolutely pummeled them that day and got beat 1-0. I mean, I can remember speaking to Peter Schmeichel about it at Man City when Peter came to Man City, and even they were astounded how they managed to get anything, let alone a win. Pete was just had one of them games where he kind of just no matter what we did, he was saving. I think the biggest one was probably Blackburn for me. I mean, obviously, I think fans or the rest of the lads might have different ones. But Blackburn, Graham Fenton will always be remembered for the goals. That was the one I think that kind of knocked the stuffing a little bit out of us. It was disappointing for me as well because obviously I'd getting into the back end, which was the Liverpool game, the 4-3. I'd done my hamstring, and we all know when you look at Callum Wilson, hamstrings are very, they're not great to get over. So of course, I was out of the team. Philippe and Peasy was in there, and it was difficult to watch. As a fan, really, and as a player, that we were so close, just to see it slipping away was a killer. So I would probably say the Blackburn game for me, but I'm pretty sure the boys will probably say maybe, whether it was Man United or one of the other games, that's their opinion.
Okay. Tom wants to know why you left Newcastle to go and play for Man City.
I felt as though I'd been at Newcastle too long, if I was brutally honest. I think sometimes as a player, you need to feel appreciated. And I didn't feel as though at that particular time I was. Kenny was the manager at that time, and I can remember going in to see Kenny, and he wasn't in. Terry Mack was in, and I told Terry, I just sort of said, I just feel as though I've been here too long. I need to get out, and just little things, and I know it's petty, but there was little things like they would do the calendar. Like it's that you buy for Christmas.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even be in. I'd be playing, but I wouldn't even be in the calendar. And I'd be thinking, hold on a second, I've been here like 10, 12, 13 years, and I'm not even in the calendar. Things like that would kind of pee me off a little bit. And I know it's not the manager's fault. I know it's not the fans' fault. It's probably somebody upstairs. And I just thought, why? And it was little daft things. And I know people can sort of say, bloody hell, get a grip. But for me personally, I just thought, I just felt as though I wasn't even getting appreciated by the club.
Yeah, it's after all that year's service, those years' service, being loyal and being such a great player and an integral part of a wonderful team, I guess, it's just wanting to be wanted, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, as I said, sometimes it's little things. It's not so much, it wasn't, for me, it's never been about money. It's never been about anything like that. It was just little things and feeling like kind of appreciated. But it wasn't just that. I just felt as though it was time to move on. As it was, Kenny, like more or less sort of said, you're not going anywhere. And then after that, obviously we had, I think, Rude. Because when Kenny had getting sacked, not long after, I'd gotten a phone call because it had getting out a little bit that I'd wanted to leave, and then I got a phone call off my agent, more or less sort of saying Liverpool's interested. Do you want to speak to them? So I met Gerard Houllier and Robinson, the chief exec, down at Leeds, and I agreed everything. I did everything bar sign. I was driving back home from Leeds. I spoke to my parents and more or less sort of said, look, it's a done deal. I just have to see Rude tomorrow. Yes, he's been on the phone. And then when I'd seen Rude, I seen him about 8 o'clock in the morning at St James's. And basically, it was a kind of Kevin Keegan-esque change of mind to the player, like you did with like some David Ginola and people like that. It was always from Ruud. It was, this is what we're going to do. You know, we're going to make these signings. This is what's going to happen with you. This is what's going to happen with this, that, and so there with like Alan and Rob Lee. You know, because I'd sort of more or less mentioned the fact that there was a rift between them, and you can't have a rift with your best players.
Yeah.
And of course, it was going to get turned around, and I was like, right, fine, if that's the case, I'll stay. You know, and I stayed, and he got sacked. And obviously, after that, Sir Bobby came in, and then it was a little bit after Sir Bobby came in, he pulled me to one side and just sort of said, "Listen, we've got you, we've got Laurent Charvier, we've got Nikos Davidas, I think it was Alan Goma, Marcelino," and he said, "Freddie feels as though there's too many centre halves." He said, "We've offered all of them to clubs," and he went, "Nobody wants to buy anybody." He says, "But there's a few clubs interested in you," and he mentioned who they were. And to be quite honest, there was only one for me, and that was Man City. So I went down, I met Joe Royal, and signed straight away.
Okay, good stuff. And next question is from David Shepherd. He said, "Who was your favourite centre-half partner whilst playing for England, and why?"
Well, the games that I played, apart from one, I made a debut with Razor Ruddock. But obviously, I mean, Razor was a very good player, but probably you'd have to say Tony Adams. I mean, he was just a born leader. Great lad off the pitch, but unbelievable on it. So you probably have to say Tony Adams.
Okay, and Toon GS, Gordon Samuels, he says, "Morning, Steve. Throughout your career, who was your favourite manager to play for?"
Do you know what? I only never got on with one manager. Bear in mind, you know, I played under Jim Smith, Ozzy Ardiles, Kevin Keegan, Kenny Dalglish, Ruud Gullit, Sir Bobby, Terry Venables, Joe Royal, Kevin again. I had Sam Allardyce. But I suppose, like I said, there was only one I didn't get on with. I think people, I'm not going to say his name, you can kind of work it out. I didn't last very long there. I left. And I didn't have a great deal of time with Glenn Hoddle either. I mean, I think there was one question about England on Twitter, which I was going to get into, because he picked me for one squad, and then after that I wasn't in the squad, but there's a reason and there's a good story behind that.
Okay, Mark Taylor says, "Hi Steve, was it true that you were originally a centre forward, and if so, what made you change positions?"
No, I wasn't a centre forward. I was always a midfield player, an attacking midfield player as a kid, like primary school and stuff like that. And I came into Newcastle as a midfield player. The only problem was in the apprentices that we took on that year, we didn't have a centre forward. Obviously, we had Anne Flormer, who was a centre forward at that particular time. We had Davy Robinson, who was a couple of years older again. But in the youth team under Colin Suggard, we didn't really have one. Anne Flormer had been drafted into the first team. Davy Robinson was too old, so he was in the resis. So me and Lee Clark went up front. And to be fair, we were pretty prolific as goal scorers. That progressed into the reserves. And obviously, I mean, my debut was a centre forward, but I was never a centre forward. I mean, clearly, you see me when I was playing as a centre forward. I wasn't a centre forward. And it was just Ozzy Ardiles, as mentioned, because he'd seen me play at the back in five sides. And it was him who suggested the idea. And it was only really when Kevin came that it took off and me being a centre half.
Okay, Mark also says, "Why do you think you didn't get as many England caps as you should have done?"
Well, that's the story. I mean, first of all, I made my debut in '94, and then I was all the way through until '96. '96, I mean, I can remember being told by Terry Venables that we played Switzerland, and we drew 1-1. Alan had scored. And we were under pressure because obviously what had happened in Hong Kong, the dentist chair and all that kind of thing, and the flight coming back, Cathay Pacific from Gaza, and yeah, there we go. There we are.
Just on the left-hand side there for those people who aren't looking, but Gaza and the lads leading you astray, Steve.
Yeah, well, I think it was everybody leading everybody astray, to be quite honest. But yeah, I mean, Terry had sort of said, listen, go and get yourself ready because you'd be playing in Scotland and Holland. As I said, I went for a run. It's well documented. I ended up right at the end, twisted my ankle and tore all my ankle ligaments. I still went there because I'd spoke to Terry and he said, listen, it's up to you. You can either come or just stay at home. You know, there's not very many people get picked to represent the country at a major tournament. So I still went down. I mean, Sol was in the team, and Gareth did absolutely brilliant. Kind of basically Gareth and Sol took over really after that because Tony Adams more or less retired. And I can remember the very first squad that Glenn had chosen, I was in. And I can remember him pulling me to one side. And see, this story, which I'm going to tell, you've heard before, but I very rarely tell them on podcasts and stuff like this because I do the after dinner thing and I try not to tell them because I'm picked to come and come to the after dinners. So I will tell this story though. So Glenn had picked me anyway. After the training session, he pulled me and just sort of said, "Listen, I want you to go and see this woman who I think could really help you." And I'd asked who it was, and her name was Eileen Drury. And Eileen Drury was kind of a faith healer. People that know the football would surely know the story about Eileen Drury and Glenn Hoddle. Anyway, I'd sort of said to Glenn, "Listen, Gaffer, it's not for me." The reason behind that was previously Kevin Keegan's wife, Jean, she'd been reading books on this woman called Betty Shine. And Betty Shine was kind of along the same lines of faith healer. Now, I haven't got anything against that. If that's your thing, then fine. If what makes you better is your thing and it makes you better, then crack on. But Jean had getting into Kevin. So Kevin had sort of getting into Derek Wright, bless him. So Derek had pulled me, Alan Shearer, and sort of said, "Listen, the gaffer wants you to go and see this woman called Betty Shine." We went, in all fairness, it was a shambles because the first mistake that she made was the three of us were in the room at the same time. So we're like bits of kids laughing and carrying on and, you know, just not taking it serious. And she would put your hand, two hands on your leg. You got your boxer shorts on, your slips or whatever. And she'd be saying, "Can you feel the heat? Can you feel the heat?" And you're thinking, well, you can feel the heat because your bloody hands are warm. You know, it's not. There's no like solar. There's no power going through that. It just didn't work. It was a shambles. So we've come back, and I don't think Kevin was too impressed because we pissed about. In all fairness, and actually, me and Derek Wright got wrong. Shearer didn't he got off with it, but me and Derek got battered off Kevin. Anyway, as I said, Glenn had asked me to go and see Eileen Drury. I said, "Listen, with all due respect, I'm wasting your time, I'm wasting her time, and I'm wasting my time because it's not something I believe in. It's not for me." And he was like, "Not a problem, Stephen, not an issue. You'd never pick me again in the team." And it was only years afterwards, I was working and I was with Ray Parlour. And Ray Parlour had said, "Boy, what happened with you and with England and the gaffer?" I said, "I refused to see Eileen Drury." And he was like, "Oh my good God." He went, "Have you not heard the story about me and Gaza before the French World Cup and the squad?" I was like, "No." She had such a major influence on the squad and who was going to get picked. He says every one of us from the big squad that was going to get whittled down had to go in and see Eileen. And he says, and if you go in that, you had to go into a hotel room. He said there was a chair in the middle. You had to sit down, and basically she was assessing you, and then she was going to Glenn and saying yes, no. She was more or less picking the squad, which is ridiculous. But Ray was like, he says, "Mate," he says, "I thought it was a pile of poo." He says, "So I've got in." He says, "The chair's there." And he says, "I've sat down." And he says, "You know me hair." He says, "I've sat down. I've gone, Eileen, just a little trim off the back, just a little bit." And she went, "Get out." He was like, "What?" She's like, "Out." Binned. That's him, gone from the squad. He's out of the World Cup squad. He says, Gaza goes in, sits down. He's giggling. She's gone, "Come on, Paul, let's take it serious. Come on, come on." She's standing behind him and she's going, whoosh, 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 and then she's gathering this stuff up and she's walking to the window. She's opened the window and she's going, go, go, go. Comes back behind Paul, whoosh, 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 back to the window, go, go, go. Gaz went, Eileen, what are you doing? She went, Paul, I'm getting rid of all the evil spirits. So it's just me and you in the room. It's just me and you. So then she's standing behind him and Gaz is giggling. She's going, come on, Paul, come on, be serious. Gaz like sort of tends to be a bit serious. And then again, after 5 minutes, he starts laughing again. She's gone, Paul, I've had enough. What's wrong? Why are you laughing? This is serious. Why are you laughing? He went, I'm sorry, Eileen. It's the evil spirits outside pulling funny faces. Well, that was it. She lost the plot, kicked him out. So that was him out of the World Cup squad as well. So just because he'd had a daft little joke, and you know what Gaz is like, there's Paul Gascoigne, one of the best players England's ever produced, is out. Ray Parlour, fantastic, part of this amazing Arsenal team, he's out on the say-so of this woman. So I would like to think mine was basically the fact of I didn't go along with the Ireland jury thing. I think one or two others, but obviously Gazza and Ray Parlour was another. But having said that as well, you had Salt, who was doing magnificent, and obviously you had Gareth, who went on to be amazing as well. So it was always going to come to an end. It never lasts, but at least there's a story behind it.
It's a great story, that. Thanks for sharing it. Next question then is from Tom. He says, Steve, did you have any bad injuries? I mean, obviously, other than the one you had in the Euro 96. What's the worst injury you've had, and what's the worst one you've seen in football?
I had 3 really bad injuries, and each one kept me on for a year. And the 3 of them, each one can finish a career at that particular time. So, I mean, I missed an awful lot of football. I mean, that's 3 years solid of missing football, plus the little niggly injuries that you pick up after being out for a full year. I mean, I had like so many hernia operations, doubles as well, not just singles, doubles. Finally, that got sorted by a man called Mr. Gilmore. It's actually now called Gilmore's groin. They were just tearing constantly. So you'd come back and then they would tear. You'd come back and tear. I mean, actually, one of them I got done at Hartlepool, and I can remember because you're more or less in and you're out the same day. And I can remember being at home and just feeling uncomfortable down there. And I put my hand down and I brought it out. It was full of blood, and as I looked, it was all open. So I had to get rushed in. And then they'd left something in, and then you come back and it would tear again. And as I said, ultimately, I went down to Harley Street and got Gilmore's groin, so that sorted that out. Then I had a thing called compartment syndrome, which is very little. There wasn't a great deal known about it. I think out of all of the athletes in the country, there was only myself, and there was a rugby player that had this. And basically, it's a tightening of what you call the fascia, which is the back of the calf. And it tightens too much, and basically you pull your hand, you pull your calf, or you tear your calf, and it's what happens if it's continuous running. So the training session isn't too bad, especially or a game, because you stop, start. It's like a fartlek kind of exercise. Whereas if it's a continuous thing, so in pre-season, if I'm asked to do a 10-minute run, can't do it, impossible, still can't do it. And then again, it was, as I said, there was operation after operation after operation. It was a nightmare. I mean, you've seen the state of my calves. The scars is absolutely horrific. So that took a year. And then I also I snapped my Achilles. I was actually playing in the semi-final against Tottenham at Old Trafford in the FA Cup. Just jumping for a ball, nothing, major. And bear in mind, there's 80-something thousand in that stadium, and you heard it snap, and people on the bench heard it snap, and it's like a dry twig. It makes that noise. There's a test that they do. It's called the Thompson test, and basically you grab your calf and you squeeze it. If your foot doesn't flex, it's gone, and that was me. So again, I was in plaster for 6-7 months. God. And of course, after that, then you've got to have the build-up of the muscles and stuff like that. So they were the injuries. Obviously, you have the daft ones, the little cut, the hamstring, thigh, strains, the bits and pieces, a kick, all them kind of things. But they were the ones. The hardest thing about them injuries was the rehab, and the hardest thing about them was constantly every day going into the training ground and watching the lads train and laugh and carry on, and you're not part of it. I mean, I think Alan's had a couple of bad injuries, and he'll tell you, anybody that's had a bad injury, the road to recovery is soul destroying. But you have to just have a mental attitude of, I'm coming back bigger, better, and stronger. I mean, I felt as though I didn't. I ended up playing quite a bit of football after all of these injuries, so I was pleased that I'd getting back. Thankfully, I haven't seen anything on the pitch which has really turned my stomach. I mean, you've seen things that's happened, like that Boost challenge, Coventry and Man United, and one or two others. You look at, I think, Henrik Larsson, Julian Cisse, their kind of injuries. And there's been others. I mean, thankfully, I haven't been on a pitch where I've seen that.
Yeah, okay. Paul Oxley sent us one on Twitter. He says, not many people will remember you as a striker in the early days. He says, what was it like to wear the iconic number 9 shirt? I didn't realise you'd actually worn that.
Yeah.
What was it like? Is there an extra pressure wearing it? He sent us that photograph as well from the 1-1 draw down at Roker Park, of course, with I think Liam O'Brien scored the goal. November 17th, 1991. Were you up front that game?
I think Liam O'Brien, that free kick, did we not win that game 2-1?
He scored 2 goals in the derbies at Roker Park, apparently, yeah.
Right. I mean, listen, it was... Of course, it's an iconic number at Newcastle. I think you've got to be. Let's be honest. You've got to be bloody good to wear that number, and you've got to score goals. And I think at that particular time in a team which wasn't doing fantastically well, not scoring goals, and let's be honest, I'm a Mackham. That didn't go down too well either. So of course you can imagine the bit of stick that I did get. I mean, I think I got used to my name initially being useless Mackham bastard. I think that was the term I was quite. That's what I thought my name was for the first year I was at Newcastle wearing that number 9. It was only afterwards that it got to be Howey, and even then sometimes it would be like, wait a minute, but you kind of please everybody.
Well, that's it. You can't. Following on from that question, then it's this is a rather apt one. Jasmine says 2022 FA Cup final, Newcastle versus Sunderland, packed Wembley. Who would Steve support?
Where's Sunderland in this? Are they in the Premier League?
Well, I suppose FA Cup, they could still get through, couldn't they? We could end up playing them in the FA Cup. I would say, there's an easy answer to this question, Steve. It's whoever gives you the tickets.
Probably none of them. I don't have tickets of any of them, to be quite honest. I can't get tickets off. I'm not exactly welcome at St James's, so I'm still getting no tickets off them.
No.
Listen, for me, I mean, I've always sort of said, and I've said that I am from Sunderland, and I do believe that you should support your hometown team, and I do. But obviously, I've got a massive affiliation and massive connection with Newcastle because of the time that I've spent there, the people that I spent it with. It's a difficult one. I think if they're playing each other in normal, if it was in the Premier League, I've always sort of said, listen, if Newcastle were really struggling and need the points, 100% I'd want Newcastle to win, and exactly the same if it was Sunderland. If they're both doing all right, for me personally, I'm not that bothered as long as it's a good game and the best team wins. As long as it's not costing them a place in the Premier League. But as far as an FA Cup, I don't know. I probably still have to. You know what? I'd probably go for Sunderland if I'm being brutally honest, because it is my hometown team.
It's never going to happen. So you won't need to make that decision. It'll never happen. David Crone says, who was your favourite centre-half partnership with at Newcastle?
I liked every one of them. I mean, I had obviously Killer. I had Kevin Scott. I had Nikos. I mean, obviously I played with Alan Goma and Laurent Xavier. I had Laurent Xavier at Man City as well. I thought Alan Goma was a great lad. But of course, the main ones you would sort of say is Peasy, Darren Peacock and Phil. Philippe was a good well, Fleet was a fantastic player, but as a defender, you'd have to say Darren Peacock, because Peasy didn't spend enough. Philippe didn't spend enough time in defence to be a good defender. He'd piss off, and to be quite honest, he'd spent most times standing next to bloody Allen and Les that he did stood next to me. But as a defender, you'd have to say Peasy. As a player, Philippe, 100%.
Okay, good stuff. What's the banter like between you and Dean Windass with the walks you both keep posting up? Asks Darren Wells. This is part of the, the charity walk that you were supposed to be doing, but obviously it's been put on hold through COVID. But you are still getting out and training, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I think we were speaking just before, and obviously we can't do Kilimanjaro this year because of COVID, but we are still doing coast to coast, which is still 20 miles a day for 6 days. So it's still going to be tough. We're still trying to raise money and awareness of mental health and all that kind of thing. And we've got a WhatsApp group with Windass on it, and obviously there's Mark Crossley. We've got John Parker and Chris Kirkland, Nigel Jensen, and a few of the comedians and stuff like that. And it's great banter. But I mean, Dino's an absolute space cadet. Not the brightest at all, if I'm being brutally honest. I know he does it. What he does on Twitter though, with these little videos, are brilliant, and people do, take off them what they need. He does the, beds made, pillars on top, and I think there was a really famous army commander that more or less sort of said the first thing that you do when you get up is make your bed, because even if you do nothing else through the day, at least you've achieved one thing. But I mean, we're always talking with each other. We're always kind of involved with the WhatsApp group. Some stuff on there that's not really for people's viewing. If you can imagine what WhatsApp groups are like, and some of the stuff that gets put on there is absolutely shocking. But ultimately, I think what we are trying to do as a group is serious. We do want people to get out. We do want people to get in contact and stay positive, because it is difficult, especially now. I mean, as we said at the start of the show, it's a year, and it's some people are finding it very, very difficult. And I think for me personally, it helps me personally, and I don't mind going out and doing videos. I don't do videos every day, but the feedback that you get when I put a video on, when Dino does, when Mark Crossley does, the feedback of people all of a sudden just thinking, do you know what? I was going to sit on my backside today, but I seen the video and I just thought, I'm going to get up. And instead of going out for 10 minutes, they've gone out for half an hour. Instead of going out for half an hour, they've gone out for an hour. And we always believe that if you do that, guarantee you, when you've done it, you feel a damn sight better. 100% you feel a damn sight better. And the fact of picking up the phone and speaking to somebody that you haven't spoke to, or even that you have, just to keep in touch, or you haven't seen, it helps massively for yourself, your well-being and mental health. For me, I think it's the power of just doing something so simple. The benefits are huge.
Jeff Willock sends a message in. He says, "Good morning to the two Steves. Can you thank Steve Howey for the walking videos? Most helped me and a lot of people. Please carry on with them. The walking's brill."
It is a fantastic website. Obviously, I'm not on here for sponsors and stuff like that, but have a look at the website. It is. We are trying to raise a lot of money for the NHS and mental health charities, but even if the money is not massive, as long as we feel as though there's people actually taking up walking, or they've done 5 minutes in the garage of lifting some weights, or did a little bike ride, or anything, just something. I always sort of say, do something for yourself which makes you feel better in a positive way. And I guarantee you, even if it's for 5-10 minutes, it does help. It really does help. I mean, we've spoke about this before. I've spoke about it in depth with a lot of other people. I'm blown away by the fact that just a little video, or even me getting out and just doing like a 10-minute walk with a dog, or a 15-minute walk with a dog, helps me. It really does help me. And then because I'm feeling better within myself, then I'm ready to help other people. And I think once you start with yourself, you can then open yourself up and help other people. And if you helping other people, if one person, I've done my job, and I will be putting stuff on over the weekend, and if that gets one person out, I've done my job.
Yeah, I mean, I'm averaging about 20,000 steps. I think I did 27,000 yesterday, mate. So, I mean, I got further afield. I walked from Gateshead, Dunstan, as you know, all the way into town. Had to go to the office, went up to Northumberland Street. Then I walked back down at the quayside. It's one of my mates, Dave, who I walk regularly with. I have done since, the very start of the pandemic. We then walked down to the quayside. We grabbed a copy on the quayside. And then we walked all the way back to Dunstan, and then we bypassed Dunstan. We walked all the way to the skiff, which is past the Metro Centre, and then we turned around and then we came back. So, I mean, a few hours out of your day, but yeah, it was a good walk in tough conditions as well in the snow. Yeah. But walkingsbrilliant.com, great website. Have a look at it, guys, and I've stuck the link up there.
I mean, the thing is as well, one thing I've discovered is the fact that even where I live, I didn't even know half the stuff that was there. And I've just thought, wow, it's a lovely park here, or there's a lovely something to see. Or before we got the dog, me and Cam used to jump in the car, and we go to Whitby, and it's nice to sit down and have a cup of tea and fish and chips and stuff like that, and fresh air. You see some wonderful sights, and there's some wonderful places up, here in the northeast. I mean, up Northumberland here and all that kind of thing. Be absolutely amazing. I tell you what, your walking can come in handy with. Is when we do finally get over this and we do get some dues. You know what I'm going to say? Stop bloody picking the phone up and get me to pick it up. What you're off there?
Yeah, I don't want to be too sweaty before we get on stage, mate. That's the problem. But good idea, mate. I've dug myself a big hole there.
Can you pick us up? It's only 5 minutes down the road. You lazy bugger. Come back.
Brilliant. Did you ever play against your brother Lee? Says Jasmine.
No, it's probably just as well.
Yeah, probably just as well, yeah, definitely. David Crone says, who would you pair out of our current crop of centre halves?
At the moment, on current form, I'd probably go, I think Fernandez has been really good. Obviously, Clark, I think Lascelles has been up and down. Shaw before his injury. You're looking at the three for me, which is Shaw, Fernandez and Clark. I've always liked Dummett there, but he just doesn't seem to be getting in there. He's on the left-hand side, but you just wish a speedy recovery for Shaw, because I thought he'll be out for a lot longer than what they're saying, given the injuries that he's had on his knees. I mean, I think there's going to be a few back for the game against Chelsea. Let's hope that, they get in there and give a good performance, because it's going to be a tough game against them.
Yeah, I've just dragged that team up actually from that 1-1 draw, because you know what it's like. Liam O'Brien did score. The team that day was Tommy Wright, Matty Appleby, Darren Bradshaw, Kevin Scott, Mark Stimson, yourself, Liam O'Brien, Gavin Peacock, David Roach, Alan Thompson and Andy Hunt. And on the bench, Steve Watson and Lee Makel. They came on anyway. They were the subs that came on, but just under 30,000 at Roker Park for that 1-1 draw. But some team that, I remember that. I was probably at that game. I can't remember it. I remember the 2-1 very, very well. But that must have been the season before. But David Reed's asking, favourite night spot in Newcastle? He says, you remember seeing you in Legends?
Didn't really go out, to be quite honest. So there wasn't very many places that we went. I think, look, it's been well documented that we did go to Legends. Obviously, there was the Quayside with Martha's and Jimmy's, and then Julie's. I think we normally started off with Uno's food. Yeah. But I mean, that was just a period of time where we like to socialise, and I think that helped the team bonding. There's a lot of stories that we have from that, but again, I think there's people watching this which is not for them. We'll keep
them for the after dinners if we ever get back to them. Big shout out to Spider VPN, who are sponsoring this month's StreamYard application. Thank you for your support. qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend in Newcastle. Also the makers of the t-shirts, which you can buy from newcastlelegends.com. And also of our graphics and little videos that had Steve walking 10,000 miles to the Proclaimer. So a big thanks to them for that.
That wasn't me, that was you, wasn't it?
Well, I was walking. You were just standing doing nothing.
Me.
Jab Signature as well, who make our posters and flyers. Big shout out to them. And if you're a first time visitor to the channel, please subscribe. Just click the little box down in the right hand corner. Click like on the video and give it a share as well to your social media. Busy day today as well to celebrate our birthday. Obviously, we do have the three amigos back tonight. So we will be on the show tonight. Ian Mearns again, MP for Gateshead, joining us at 5:30. And then I'm doing a little half an hour special for the boxing fans out there. I'm doing a live head-to-head with Roy Jones Jr., good friend of mine over the years, keep in touch on a regular basis. So he's popping on for half an hour just to do a little boxing Q&A. So we'll get back to the questions. Gareth from Spider VPN says, congratulations on 1 year of the show, Steve. Thank you very much. To you, Steve, he says, what was better about Man City compared to Newcastle after your move?
It was just something different for me. I think it was a new challenge. I mean, obviously, you look at Man City now; it's a million miles away from what it was when I was there. I mean, when I went to Carrington, it was the training ground was run down. I mean, really run down. But at least it was Man City's. Whereas Newcastle, we didn't even have one. We had rent all the time. But as I sort of said, it was just for me personally. I just felt as though I just needed a change and I needed a different challenge. I felt as though I'd made a mistake by turning Liverpool down, and I just thought, I don't want to be regretting not taking that chance. I mean, obviously, I could have stayed at Newcastle, and it could have been kind of easy for us just to stay at Newcastle. But I wanted a different challenge and a different sort of episode of my life.
And I still can't believe you didn't get a testimonial. I really.
I refused.
Yeah, it beggars belief though for me that you should have got one. When other players did, just a game to celebrate the fact that you'd been at the club during a period. I mean, everybody else seemed to get one. Even Shearer. He was in the club for a long time. I mean, he might not have been. He might not have hit the heights the same as you, but he still served that decade. It just seems to be.
I agree. I think that if especially. Well, I don't think you get it really this day and age, but even back then, I made my debut in '89, and I left in 2000. That's a long time to be at that club. And I can remember my agent going up to Freddie and asking, and it was just a flat no. So I was like, wow. See, and that basically confounded the fact of where I felt I was at. And I just felt as though, well, if you're going to, this is where I'm thinking, I needed to go because you're getting kind of, I felt as though just like that, being there for that long, was at the club when it was absolutely on its backside, really, to where we went in Champions League, massive part of that I felt, and didn't get a thank you or kiss me ass.
Strange. David Crone says, what was it like walking out for England for the first time?
Nerve-wracking. I mean, in all fairness, you kind of sit in the dressing room before the game, and even sitting in at the hotel before when you meet up, and you find it pretty surreal because I'm looking at players that literally about 4 or 5 years ago I had on my bedroom wall. From Shoot magazine, and now all of a sudden I'm classed as teammates and I actually know my name. So I can remember being so proud, and I can remember after the game, my dad had sort of said, "Listen, no matter what happens, from playing and doing all those hours, I was going in between cones, left and right foot. You played for your country, and there's not very many people that can say that." Now, listen, I have to be honest. I think Gareth does really well with sort of trying people out. But I suppose back in my time, I felt as though it was a big thing to get an England cap. And I think you had to be decent, to be quite honest, to get it in the camp. I'm not saying you don't have to now, but I think sometimes they're kind of giving away a little bit more easily.
Yeah, I would agree. Tom Dixon says, how many red and yellow cards did you have during your playing time?
Oh, I haven't got a clue what yellows. Reds, one.
What? Who was
It
that
was for
against?
Newcastle. I was playing for Newcastle, and we played. Ozzy Ardiles was the manager, and we played Charlton. I think I'm not sure if we're playing at the Valley or we're playing somewhere else. No, I don't know. Anyway, I came on as a sub, a centre forward, and there was a lad that was playing right back. I think it was called Darren Pitcher, and he's going to clear it, and I've caught him late. I haven't caught him to hurt him. I've just caught him late. And the referees showed me a straight red.
Okay, Tim Cairn says, who was your inspirations in football?
Are we talking kind of when I was growing up, like kind of?
Yeah, I would imagine who inspired you. Who were your heroes?
I did like. I mean, bizarrely enough, I love watching Kenny Dalglish. I love watching Glenn Hoddle. I just love watching football and watching players. I mean, for me, I think I just had a real determination to be not where I was, which was, you know, I suppose I'm proud of where I came from in some respects, but I wanted better. You know, I didn't want to be in the council estate anymore, and I wanted to make sure that I could be in a situation where I could provide for and help my mum and dad. So therefore, when we had 6 weeks holidays, and I mean, obviously there was no academies and stuff like that. I used to just go outside and with a tennis ball for hours and hours, just hit it with my left foot with a tennis ball. So I was always right-footed, and I think that massively helped me. But like I said, I just like watching them kind of players. But if I'm being brutally honest, I did have a massive determination to do something with my life. So when I look back, I was really proud of what I did.
David also says he's just had the Dream Boys on the phone. They want you on their calendar, Steve.
What, with a balaclava?
Jasmine says, how did Newcastle spot you in the first place?
Just like everything else. I mean, obviously, I played in the Russell Foster League, which was like kind of a time and wear league. You know, you played for your school, you played on a Saturday, you played on a Sunday, for just like, you know, under 9s and 10s, 11s, 12s, 13s, 14s, all the way through to kind of 16. At our games, I mean, when I was at St Cuthbert's, we had a really good prime team, but obviously at St Aidan's, we had an unbelievable team at senior school. I think we only lost 2 games in the 5 years we were there. We won everything. And so we used to get like every scout from every club watching us because we had some fantastic players. I think nearly everyone signed up for a club. There was only myself actually who actually made it from the whole group. But I know that, like as I said, there were scouts from. It used to be the first division then. I went to Manchester United on trial, didn't like it. Went to Leicester on trial with Paul Kitson, funny enough, as a kid. I kind of enjoyed that, but it was always going to be between Sunderland and Newcastle. At Sunderland, the scout really was a bloke called George Hurd, and he was with a fella called Harry Dent. And at Newcastle, it's been the one and only who had been there for years and years, and the lads I'll tell about Lee Clark, Steve Watson, Rob Elliott, Alan Thompson, there's Peter Berkeley.
Yeah.
You know, they would come in and obviously just go and speak to my dad and find out who my dad was and ask if I'd wanted to come in for a trial or do like kind of the 6 weeks holidays eventually, because that's when that came in. I went to Newcastle a couple of times. I went to Sunderland a couple of times, and for some reason, I felt more at home in Newcastle than I did at Sunderland. As it turned out, I mean, I basically, as a kid, came through with Rob Elliott, Steve Watson, Lee Clark, and Matty Appleby. There was Alan Nielsen who was there as well. There was like Phil Mason. David Roach was a year above us, but I loved it there. I mean, we trained at Benwell, not exactly the most luxurious place to train, but I loved it.
Yeah, Paul Usher says, do you remember doing a team autograph signing at M&S Northumberland Street? He says he's not sure what it was to do with. It might have been a clothing range they were selling. Do you remember that?
There's a very good chance it was some sort of clothing range. I know they certainly didn't ask me later on with like when we did the catwalks, unless we were doing gloves and balaclavas because they got, you know, Warren Barton. I know you've had Warren on, obviously David and Les, and I think Shea Given had put something on actually on Twitter the other day because I think he was to me. He looked an absolute sight. But yeah, I mean, obviously they had them lads for that. They kept like some me and Rob Lee and that Peasy out the way. I mean, I'm surprised Bez didn't get asked. Actually, I was just looking at my phone there, and Bez is trying to ring us.
Yeah, Bez is on next week.
Is he on next week? I'm just surprised he didn't get asked. I mean, I know there's been a lot of. Did you see the picture of us in Uno's? And he does that.
Yeah.
I mean, he's obviously posing there. He's doing his boy band look. He's trying to ring us now. He's a pain. I pressed the button to see I'll ring in a bit, and he's rang me about 3 times.
No problem. We've got about 10 minutes left anyway. Not much longer to wait. Does Steve think Shearer is the best striker?
100%.
Yeah, I mean, there's nobody else that you could really, compare to him, is there? I mean, Harry Kane looks as if he might break his record if he stays in England. He's got a possibility.
He has, yeah. But I mean, I'll now and again get in contact with Al and wind him up. But 100%, unbelievable at what he did.
Yeah, he was. I found that photo of Uno's actually. There you go.
There you go. No, I don't know what Philippe's wearing, by the way. I think he's been doing some logging. He's been up in the log cabins or somewhere.
Yeah, well, so we've got on there. There's Rob Lee, Paul Kitson, Lee Clark, Steve Watson, Robbie Elliott, Celez, Warren, Keith, Peacock, Beresford, yourself. Pav's on one of them as well, isn't he? There's a different angle, I think, and Pav might.
He is, yeah. I mean, I'm just looking at Les. I mean, honestly, that bloke could wear a bloody thin liner and he'd still look at dogs.
Yeah, brilliant photo. Great memories from some great times there. Maidstone Junction and Outstable says, what do you think of Alex Bruce's TalkSport interview? It's obviously been on this morning. Not sure if you heard it. Feel he's alienating fan base just when results are picking up. He should have a PR department at the club because the headlines by Simon Bird make fans look awful. Yeah, there has been quite a bit of that, Steve, to and fro. And look, nobody can condemn death threats or anything like that. Steve Bruce isn't on social media. I'll be honest, I've seen Alex Bruce have a pop at fans in a roundabout way. Now he's calling fans out. It's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, I think, with Alex Bruce. But nobody deserves the kind of abuse on social media. We've done a campaign about it. For me personally, it's calmed down, I'm pleased to say. But ultimately, for others, it continues, and it doesn't matter whether you're a reality star, whether you're, Anthea Turner's getting it in the neck on Twitter. It's a bit of a cesspit, isn't it?
It's vile and it's abhorrent behaviour. I can totally get where Alex is coming from. I mean, obviously, I did BBC Newcastle thing yesterday and Friday and that, and it must be absolutely awful that Alex has got to hear the stuff that his dad's getting called. I mean, it's his dad, and when somebody's sending something that they're wanting his dad to die, I mean, that's just absolutely horrific. Something has to be done about it because it's just going on too much now. I mean, I can totally understand where Alex is coming from. He wants to defend his dad, and rightly so. And I think when we've seen the interview from Steve himself, when he turned around and said, listen, criticises, that's part and parcel of it. And it is. I mean, rightly or wrongly, you're in a job and you put your head above the precipice, you're going to be shot at, really. That for me is kind of acceptable, criticism that way, but not, there's a line, and I think you can't go over that line. And for people to do that, I mean, as I said, it does need some sort of legislation where it's got to be looked at, where everybody has to be made accountable. for that. You can't just have like an account where you can just set it up and you could be completely anonymous. That's just unacceptable. You've got to be found, like named and shamed, and and fined. That these people, if they've got jobs, they lose the job. This is the penalties. I cannot see prison sentence or anything like that, but just really, really big fines. It's social media can be so good at times and so positive, but it can be the source of pure evil as well. I mean, I know that if there was fans in, I would have felt very, very sorry for Steve, because absolutely no doubt he would have been getting dogs abuse. He'd have getting hammered. And to be quite honest, some of the criticism and some of the things that would have been said would have been bang out of order, and it would have been toxic in there after some of the results. But I'm pleased we've had the results that we've had lately. But obviously, ultimately, something needs to be done about the registration of of how we go about this and police it properly, because it's just not right.
Yeah, 100% agree. 5 minutes left. Last couple of questions. Roger Cook says, biggest football regret, Steve?
Not signing for Liverpool and not getting injured so much. But them injuries weren't my fault. They were just injuries that are injuries. Yeah. It's not like you could do anything or prevent them.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Mark asks, what was it like watching the genius Peter Beardsley at full flow?
I felt blessed. I felt blessed anyway with working with somebody like Peter, working with the lads, Bears, Rob Lee, Les Ferdinand, Andy Cole, David, Philippe, Tino. The list goes on and on and on. I mean, just feel absolutely blessed and honoured to train with them every day. And actually, Alan, I can actually call them my friends.
Yeah.
For me, the absolute superstars. And yet I feel blessed to say that I actually played with these people and I can actually call them my friend.
Train Sun says, out of the greatest strikers we had in the entertainer years, who was the hardest to keep quiet, Steve?
All of them.
Yeah.
But I did keep all of them quiet in training. They never liked playing against me in training. You can ask them that. I know that for a fact. 5 minutes. She's asking us about the dog. Yeah, I mean, in the games, I used to, if I was playing against Coley, if it was Peter, if it was Les, if it was Al, David used to still keep on the left. So he used to sort of bother the people that was like Steve Watson or Rob Elliott and people like that. But if the team against me had one of them playing, I'd mark them, because for me they're the best, and I want to play against the best. And it's no good me playing against, if we have one of the young kids coming up front, I'm not going to mark him. I'm going to play against Alan Shearer. I'm going to play against Les, because I want to pick myself up against who other defenders would really struggle against, because Shearer is the best, Ferdinand's the best, Coley's the best, Peter Beardsley's the best. So I'm going to pit myself against them. And if in a training session I can completely nullify them, I'm thinking, well, I'm progressing, I'm doing better. And this is even later on when I was still at Newcastle, not just the early days of being a centre-half.
Last question to Tom. I know you've got to go out and walk the dog. What's the best team, the team you look forward to playing in the league the most?
When I was at Newcastle?
Yeah.
Sunderland.
There we go. Steve Howey, really honoured to have you on the show for our first birthday, mate. Look forward to watching your walk and stuff with progress, and look forward to the day when we can get back on stage and tell a few more of those stories you couldn't tell on the podcast. But love to you.
Yeah, I'll probably say a bit more as well on them podcasts. I get calls, because this sometimes comes into you. Got to watch that language. Exactly. So I think I've been relatively good today.
You have, mate. You have. Well, listen, great to have you on, mate. Thanks for coming on, and you stay safe, mate, and look forward to catching up with you again soon. Take care, pal.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you. Take care, everyone.
talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the